They're not good enough to start. They're not even good enough to play. But they do talk a good game. So come join Lou and Jose from the sidelines where all the best sports discussions happen anyway. Welcome in to the Benchwarmerz podcast.
Welcome into the program, everybody. I am Lou Ruggieri. That is Jose Ortiz. And this is the Benchwarmerz podcast. Wherever, whenever, and however you happen to be listening, we appreciate taking some time to spend it with us. Hopefully, it's been worth your while thus far. We had a lot to talk about in the first hour. All NFL, some 2020 season review wrap-ups, the top 5 news stories in Week 17. We had an obituary segment where we had a one-sentence obituary for every team in the league that did not make the playoffs and kind of how we felt about wrapping up each of their respective seasons. You can follow those and more, everything from the first hour, on the iHeartRadio podcasting app, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, Apple, Google, you know where to find your podcasts. You can follow us along on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at the Benchwarmerz Podcast. We're at the BW Pod on Twitter. And our email is thebenchwarmerzpodcast at yahoo.com, Benchwarmers with a Z. We have to touch on some more NFL in a little bit. We have to make some playoff picks and kind of round out our betting for the year. And we're going to use the playoffs as sort of a tiebreaker. We both kind of won 2 different things. We'll get to that more in a little bit. But first, it is the NBA, and NBA season is in full swing. So we're going to kind of switch gears a little bit and talk the top news stories in the NBA. And so right off the bat, Jose, I want to just jump right in here. The story number 1, not what you'd expect. The process seems to be working for the Philadelphia 76ers. They're in first place in the Atlantic Division and the Eastern Conference at 6-1. Are you buying this? Because I'm not.
Well, I mean, it depends on what you know. I never thought they weren't a playoff team in the Eastern Conference that is basically pretty weak once you get past the top 5 or 6 teams. I certainly don't look at them as a championship contender just yet, but it's hard to ignore that they're improved this year. I mean, I was just looking at some of the numbers. Last year, they averaged 108.4 points. They allowed 108.4 points per game. This year, they're allowing 101.7 points per game. So their defense has improved. It also looks like the addition of Steph Curry has been really helpful for them. He's chipping in 15.4 points a game, but more importantly, shooting 56.3% from the field at the guard position. Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris seem to have taken the lead as far as scoring, and it just seems that Ben Simmons has kind of fallen to the background as more of a facilitator. I'm buying into this team being a playoff team, not necessarily being anything much more than that, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously it's early in the season. Their team looks better than it did last year. I think Seth Curry, Doc Rivers obviously is a pretty good coach. And he brought in his son-in-law, Seth Curry, who is, he's not his brother, but he is a very good player. They had Dwight Howard. I didn't realize that the Sixers signed Dwight Howard.
Me neither, until you just said that.
Yeah, and so that's a good addition. We saw Dwight Howard kind of start to make a bit of a renaissance comeback last year with the Lakers, and I think he's another good addition. The thing is with the Sixers, they really haven't. I mean, they've beaten the Knicks, the Cavaliers, the Raptors, the Magic, the Hornets twice. And, so it's a little hard. I mean, I think you and I and a couple guys from the street could beat some of those teams. They do have some good games coming up against the Nets and the Nuggets and the Heat. So I think that's going to be a little more telling in like another couple weeks. I think if they can keep this run up, obviously I'll be a lot more impressed. But yeah, in the same division, it's Toronto at 1-5. The Nets are now at 4-4, which is fine, but it's early, so I wouldn't get too carried away. I mean, it's a nice sign. It's a plus. Obviously, you want to win as much as you can, but I'm not sold yet.
Yeah, and just to build off your last point there, listen, 6 games is basically like 1 week in the NFL, right? So basically, they're through week 1, and we can't make too many judgments that quickly. But so far, so good. You better be 6-1 than 1-6.
Yeah, and that's very true. And the Toronto Raptors are pretty close to that, which I think we both agreed are going to have a very serious setback. Yeah. Also, I forgot that they signed Danny Green too, the Sixers. So yeah, maybe their team is better than I thought. I didn't even pick up on. I I forgot all about.
Well, they've got some good role players and some people who can step in and just do one job. Not, we don't need you to be a scorer, a rebounder, this, that. Just come in and rebound the ball, Dwight. Danny Green, hit some 3-pointers here and there. Like they have players who have specific roles. They have a coach who's has won a championship and has had good teams. They should be better this year.
Yep.
I'm not saying championship level.
Yeah, maybe playoffs.
Yeah.
Second story, top 3 news stories, NBA this week. Jose's underrated team in the West, the Phoenix Suns, are in a 3-way tie with the Clippers and Lakers, although the Lakers just edged them out. And now they're 6-2, but everybody else is 5-2. It's early. Again, I mean, I'm going to keep saying the same thing. I think, I'll let you – this is your team, so.
Yeah, well, listen, when you add Chris Paul, they were going after making the playoffs, and maybe in their mind they think they're a championship team. I hope they don't think that, but that maybe that's what they think. But listen, you have 7 players averaging double figures on the team. They're giving up the 5th fewest they're surrendering the 5th fewest turnovers per game, and also allowing the fewest points in the league. They're doing the little things. Chris Paul shooting, I think, 95% from the free throw line. Like they're just coming in, they're doing little things, and they're getting some wins. I think this is going to be a good regular season team that maybe makes some noise in the first round of the playoffs. But that's about it. As far as the Clippers and the Lakers, they're going to be at the top of this division all season long. It's going to be all season Clippers, Lakers. But I think that you can kind of pencil in the Phoenix Suns as a team that's going to that should be heard from this year a little bit.
Yeah, I think the Suns, we saw them in the bubble last season. They made a strong run. They were doing pretty good. They had Devin Booker was the Michael Jordan of the bubble, as everyone called him. And he looked great in the bubble. They kind of fizzled out and fell short of the playoffs, but they put up a good showing. And I think what you're saying is right, because if you look at what Chris Paul did with the Thunder last year, and no one expected it just looked like a salary dump when they signed Chris Paul, and all of a sudden he shows up and has this, tremendous leadership ability and leads them into the playoffs. And if you take a team like Phoenix, who was already a better team than the Thunder were, and you add that same catalyst in Chris Paul, I think that this team, I don't think that they're going to be better, obviously, than the Lakers. I think they might end up better than the Clippers, though, because they're just more sound and more stable, it feels like.
When you hit your free throws, you don't turn over the ball, and you play strong defense, you have a chance to win a lot of games, even if you don't have that much talent.
I hope George is listening.
And the Suns, they have DeAndre Ayton, who's not playing great to start this season, but he is a former number 1 overall pick. They have Devin Booker. They have some pieces. They should be able to contend for a playoff spot this year.
They should. And there's no, I think it's going to be interesting. I'm very curious to see, because the way that shakes out, I think everybody thinks the Lakers are pretty good, but it's going to be an interesting season, I think. And speaking of the West, the Pelicans actually are top, third story. The Pelicans are 4-3. Is it possible, Jose, for them to win the Southwest Division based on Zion and Ingram? They're also, for the record, Dallas, San Antonio, Houston, Memphis are all in that same division. What are your thoughts on the New Orleans Pelicans play thus far?
Well, I certainly would be lying if I said that I thought they would be even near the top of the division. It is, as you say, very early. I think Dallas is really, when I look at these teams, I think Dallas is really their only team that's, like, I would say is like, oh my goodness, they're probably better or just as good. And I never thought that I would think that Zion Williamson was the second best player on the Pelicans, but he clearly is. Brandon Ingram, last season's most improved player in the NBA, is averaging 25 points. Averaging 25 points per game, 6.4 rebounds, 5.7 assists. Zion's averaging over 20. They have Steven Adams as well. If you look at their roster, they have some decent players up and down the team. I think they have a strong chance to win this division.
Yeah, and Zion, he looks better. He was on sort of a whatever the minute count, I guess, for some conditioning issues and some potential injury problems last year. And hopefully, we're told that that's fixed. And he does look better. He looks better than he did in the bubble. He kind of showed up a little out of shape in the bubble. And, he's a year older. He's a year smarter. He's maturing, I would assume. And that team, along with Brandon Ingram, I think, Lonzo Ball, outside of now that he's out of LA, I think a year removed from that, I think it's good for him. And they still, don't forget JJ Redick as a role player is one of the best 3-point shooters in history. So there's certainly, they're set up to do well. I don't know how well, but they look good.
No, the one thing is that, as good as Brandon Ingram is, they don't. Luka Doncic is just, he's on another level. He's not having that amazing start to the season that he had last year, but he's still playing well. And Luka, the one thing about the NBA is when you have the best player on the floor, you have a great chance to win most of the time. And I'm not sure that Brandon Ingram is going to be routinely the best player on the floor when he goes against some of these other teams. So that would be my one concern with them kind of capping their ceiling a little bit.
And as a bonus, staying in the West, Steph Curry. And I know it's top 3 news stories, but we'll throw in a little extra one here. Just Steph Curry went off for 62 points. He broke Klay Thompson's career high. Klay Thompson was very upset. And, we kind of talked about this. We said, with the absence of Klay Thompson, we said Steph Curry's going to have to show up. He's going to have to go off. And looks like he's doing it.
Yeah, that basically took his average, I think, to 33 points a game. Listen, he's just we know how special he can be when he gets it going. He didn't get it started earlier, in the first few games of the season. If he's going to play like this, and we're not going to expect him to average 60 points a game, but if he's going to be this type of threat, the Warriors are going to have a chance to do something this year. I don't think win a championship, but they'll have a chance to be competitive. Steph Curry is the best shooter in NBA history. So he's dangerous anytime he has the ball in his hands. And he quieted a couple of doubters, including myself, because I was looking at him earlier this season, like, what's going on here? Why aren't you hitting your shots? And then he said, shut up, Jose. I still got it.
Steph Curry, actually 32 years old. He's the second oldest player to score 60 points.
Is he really 32 years old? Wow. Yeah.
Do you know who the oldest person was that scored 60 points?
Oldest person to score? Oh, Kobe Bryant.
Yep.
I remember because his last game.
Yep.
60 points. Took me a second.
Got it. So, yeah, I thought that was an interesting little stat. So, your highlight of the week, please. Let's move on. We highlight, low light.
Yep, highlight of the week. Colin Sexton of the Cleveland Cavaliers, third-year player, averaging 26 points per game, and really also just shooting 55% from the floor, from the shooting guard position, which is just incredible for that type of volume. He's a player who's just gotten better and better every year, and he's an early candidate for most improved player this season.
Yeah, he's playing well. 26 points a game, it's hard to argue with. It just thinks that it's for the Cavaliers, but...
My low light of the week, the Toronto Raptors. They're the second worst team in the NBA, not just in the Eastern Conference, in the NBA right now, record-wise. Pascal Siakam's numbers are down. Offensive numbers are down considerably across the board. And they just don't really have an elite player on that team. There are a bunch of...
It should be Siakam.
I'm sorry? Oh, yeah, it should be Siakam.
Siakam.
Yeah, but they have a bunch of B and B+ and B- players on their team, and they just don't have a number one type player. And it just... listen, we talked about this in the postseason last year in the playoffs. This is a guards league. It's hard to have today's NBA, it's hard to have your best player be a center or a power forward. You just don't see it too often.
Yeah, and speaking of guards, my highlight of the week actually is, strange, I don't think I'd say this, but Kyrie Irving.
Oh, he's playing well.
When he played against the Jazz, he had a literally perfect first quarter. He had 18 points. He was 7 of 7 from the floor and 4 for 4 from 3-point range. It was unbelievable. For all the drama that he brings and all the talk of, is James Harden going to go there? Can he coexist with Kevin Durant? It's the coaching. Everybody's a coach. Nobody's a coach. It's very interesting. And then, all of that goes away if they play well. If they play well and win, no one's going to, you can say whatever you want.
Well, the fact of the matter with the Nets is if both Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving play to what we know they can do, they're clearly the team with the highest ceiling in the Eastern Conference as far as just what they can accomplish. the only real question was, could they play together? What kind of team chemistry will they have? But if they're going to play the way they've been playing, man, look out.
And my low light of the week actually is sort of it's an anniversary. It's on this day, 1988, Pistol Pete Maravich died suddenly playing a pickup basketball game, which is sad, very sad. And just for the record, I feel like Pistol Pete doesn't get a lot of the notoriety that he should because he played so long ago. But just to put things in a little bit of context, he averaged 24 points a game in the NBA and averaged 44 points per game in college. And that was all before the introduction of the 3-point line. So just think about that for a little bit. And Pistol Pete, one of the all-time greats. And it's a shame that he suddenly kind of was ripped away from here. But
if you watch, there's not a lot, but if you watch some of his old footage, just some of his like old like just highlights, some of the passes that he made, you're just blown away. Like you didn't. It's like for someone to have that level of handles and passing ability at that time when he really wasn't the art that it is now. He was just a remarkable player with the ball in his hand, one of the great ball handlers of all time.
Yeah, he's got a couple like between the legs passes. I mean, you can see all kinds of highlights that are just bananas. And he was definitely way ahead of his time. I mean, he averaged 44 points in college. I mean, I know it's college, but damn. I mean, that's
44 points. That's pretty high.
pretty good. So, yeah, that's my low light. That's unfortunate. And I tried to make it into a highlight a little bit, but
okay.
Pistol Pete, great player. All right, we're going to take a break, and then we have to switch back to the NFL, and we have to make our wild card weekend picks and kind of go over our season-long bets that we have with one another as far as sports betting and regular season picks. So we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and talk more NFL right after this on the Benchwarmerz podcast.
If you think or know you had COVID-19, you can be around others after 10 days since symptoms first appeared, and after 24 hours with no fever without fever-reducing medication, and after other symptoms have improved. If you have tested positive for COVID-19 and you had no symptoms, you can be around others 10 days after you got tested for COVID-19. To learn more, visit cdc.gov/coronavirus.
Welcome back to the Benchwarmers podcast, where being all talk is actually a good thing. Now, back to the action. Or talk, I guess.
Welcome back to the program, everybody. I am still Lou Ruggieri. That is still Jose Ortiz. And this is still the Benchwarmers podcast. Hopefully you've enjoyed the show thus far. We've certainly had fun putting it on for you. We touched on the top 5 news stories in the NFL Week 17 in the first hour. And then talked some outstanding seasons from some outstanding players this year. We had some season-ending obituaries for the teams that did not make the playoffs. We highly recommend that you go back and listen to that. You can listen on the iHeartRadio podcasting app, Amazon Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Rate us, review us. We try hard, so we'd like some credit for that if we can get it. We touched on the NBA. NBA is in full swing, so we touched on that in the beginning of this hour. And now it's time to go over sort of our regular season. We had two different bets going with each other, Jose and myself. The first was with the spread. It was we used all of our spread, our courtesy of DraftKings Sportsbook. So we played put your money where your mouth is, essentially, and we went. I think I won that. I think I was 9-8. You were 8-9. So you were catching up at the end there. And you won money, actually, didn't you?
Yeah. So last 2 weeks, I just decided that I'm just going to start betting money on them. I should have been doing it all season long, apparently, because last week I put $50 on the Saints. I said, I'm going to really put my money where my mouth is. So I put $50 on the Saints, and it was actually minus 7.5 by the time I decided to make the bet. And I actually also decided to take the under on the game because of once I saw that Alvin Kamara and Latavius Murray were injured.
Yeah.
Like, let me take the under on this game. I won $147, which I was just like blown away. I was like, wait, what? I won $147.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to start feeling myself too much and start thinking I can support my family by gambling on sports or anything like that. But I am pretty happy. I am pretty happy. I've cashed out a considerable amount of the money, but I'm going to keep making maybe one bet per week throughout the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame you. I slipped at the end there, but thankfully I edged it out. As far as you won the regular season picks, just sort of win-loss, and I tried to make up ground in this last week, and it just didn't happen.
You were so close. When I tell you, there were two games that I'm looking at right now. So the final was 167. I was 160, 71-1. You were 155, 76-1.
Yeah.
So if the Eagles beat the Washington football team and the Raiders don't win by 1 point over the Broncos, I think I still would have gotten you by one, but like it was like it made it so it was like, oh, what a blowout, but I was like, oh man, like you were like, for heading into the afternoon games, I was sweating. I was really worried because I had taken the Jets like an idiot and you took the Patriots like a smart person. Yeah. And you had ended up, kind of getting a game there, and I started getting worried. But thankfully, I held on for the win. So now it all comes down to the playoffs.
As it should.
Yeah.
As it should. So we have to. So we're basically going to pick the wild card weekend games, but we decided that we're going to use the spread to make it a little more interesting instead of just win-loss. Because, I mean, while it is the playoffs, I mean, there's certain things that are more guaranteed than others. Nothing's guaranteed, but certain things are closer than others. So we decided to make it even more interesting. And again, all our spreads are used. We use the DraftKings Sportsbook. So Jose, let's go through these games and just see where we stand, because we have to finish out this betting season of ours.
Yeah. So I'll just go ahead and read off the game, and you tell me your thought here.
Yeah.
The Colts are getting 6.5 points at Buffalo.
This one I struggled with a little bit because 6.5 points is not a small margin. And I think maybe I might be riding the sort of recency bias with the Bills, but I'm going to take the Bills minus 6.5 because they're playing a different level of football than almost every other team is right now. And the Colts, they barely eked in. I mean, they beat the Jaguars, but they barely got into the playoffs. And I think Phillip Rivers, the Bills defense, I think Josh Norman's going to have a field day with Phillip Rivers. And it just, I don't see how the Colts can make this a very competitive game.
I agree with everything you said. I don't really want to repeat too much, but I could see this game being a blowout by the middle of the third quarter.
Like the Dolphins.
The Bills are going to, Phillip Rivers is going to throw at least 2 picks. Josh Allen's going to have 3 touchdowns in the first half. This is going to be a blowout, and it's not going to be close. Give me the Bills minus 6.5. So we're both taking the Bills.
Do you think Phillip Rivers is back next year? Just as a side note, he's on a 1-year deal, so he's done after this year. But
there might be another team that takes him, but I wouldn't say he's back on the Colts. If I'm a team in the NFL, I don't see why I'm signing him. I may as well just draft someone. What's the point?
I agree. All right, next game. We have Rams at Seahawks.
Yeah, Rams at Seahawks. Seahawks are giving 4 points to the Rams, who may be without Jared Goff.
Yeah, I mean, Jared Goff has not played well this season anyway, but he's still better than Woodrow, whatever his name is. I'm taking the Seahawks. I think it's not that home field advantage matters that much in the COVID era, but it is in Seattle, and I think as good as the Rams defense is, I feel like their offense, like the difference between the Seahawks offense and the Rams defense isn't as great as I think the Seahawks defense is versus the Rams offense at this point. And I think the Seahawks are going to make this a statement win.
Yeah, I agree with everything. I think the Rams are going to have to try too hard on offense to score. And, fine, you put Jalen Ramsey on DK Metcalf. Okay, well, then that means Tyler Lockett's going to go off. Like, okay, you'll put Jalen Ramsey on Tyler Lockett. Okay, well, DK Metcalf is going to go off. And I'm not even sure that Jalen Ramsey, as good as he is, if DK Metcalf is like, what did you call him? What's the not Megatron? Galvatron. Yeah, he's just otherworldly. He's not human. He like normal people can't cover him. I'm not saying Jalen Ramsey can't make it hard for him, but what are you supposed to do against a guy who's 6'5", runs like a 4.3 40, and is faster, stronger than you, bigger than you, and faster than you? Like, what are you supposed to do?
You lose.
Yeah. Aaron Donald's going to make life difficult, but Russell Wilson, he moves around the pocket. Yeah, give me the Seahawks -4. I just don't see the Rams having a chance to keep this close.
All right. Next game, what do we have? The Buccaneers.
Yeah, the Bucks giving 8.5 at Washington.
I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to take the Washington football team plus the 8.5. And I think that, Chase Young is a star. I mean, he's already a star, but I think is a star in the making. I forget who it was. I heard it on the broadcast. I think, was it Doug Marrone? I forget who. Somebody said something about Chase Young, and they said the only person that they could compare him to with his athleticism, his talent, and his leadership was Ray Lewis.
Wow.
And that's
something. That's saying something.
That's high praise. And I think between him and Montez Sweat, who I think goes, their other defensive end, I think, who goes pretty unnoticed, who's also playing unbelievably. And by the way, Montez Sweat, how is Old Spice not signed him to a deal yet? His name is Sweat. Think of the commercial. The only way you can stop Montez Sweat, Old Spice or whatever. Like, why am I doing marketing for these things? Come on, guys. Let's get to this. How has this not happened yet? Anyway, sorry. I think that with Alex Smith, I think if this was, Dwayne Haskins or any of the other players that have come through the Washington football team quarterbacking locker room, I would think otherwise. But Alex Smith is a veteran. I think he's gonna have a poise about him, and I'm not sold on the Bucks. The Bucks they're not consistent. They're up and down and up and down and up and down. And I think, the 8.5 points helps. I think that the defensive line is set up to, how you beat Brady is you make him uncomfortable in the pocket and you hit him early and often. And we've seen that over the years in games that he's lost. I mean, the Giants, most notably with that defensive line. Then the Broncos, remember the Broncos when they won the Super Bowl, they took out the Patriots and Brady got hit. I think it was like 19 times that game. So I think that the Washington is going to make this a better game than I think a lot of people believe it's going to be.
I just don't know how Washington is going to score that often. Like, I'm not doubting what you're saying about the defense. The defense is good. I just want to point out though that Tom Brady's only been sacked 21 times this year, and that's really low. That's not even 2 per game. And last year, the Jameis Winston had been sacked over, I think, 47 times.
Jeez.
So there's a big difference. Brady gets rid of the ball. He's most of the time better in the postseason than he is in the regular season, which is just so annoying, but he is. And I don't look at this game as being close. I'm not sure that the Washington football team scores more than 14 points in this game. They struggled to score against an Eagles team that didn't want to win. And you're right that the Bucks are inconsistent, but I think that they easily put up 27 to 30 points in this, and I could see maybe like a 30-17, 30-14 win, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Bucks are going to win. I just don't think it's going to be by 9 points. So
okay, here we go. So our next game, probably the most difficult one here.
Yeah,
Ravens at Titans. Titans are getting 3.5.
I'm gonna go with the Titans, and the Ravens are playing better as of late. Lamar Jackson looks better, but the Titans just look like. I mean, Derrick Henry is just a monster, and he is, and more than Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill has looked a lot better. And like I said earlier in the program, AJ Brown is the man. He's unbelievable, and I'm just not sure. I mean, Humphrey and Peters, I think on the Ravens are good, but I think AJ Brown is better, and I think the Titans just no matter. The only thing that's going to hurt the Titans is their run defense is terrible, but it's and that's not good against a team who has the most athletic running quarterback possibly in history, and so I think that's going to keep it close. but I do think that the Titans win by at least 3.5.
Yeah, I'm going on the other side. I think, and you actually almost talked me out of it based on some of the things you said. But I'm going to stick with my initial pick here. I like the Ravens minus 3.5 because the Ravens are just going to ground and pound. They won 5 straight games to close out the season. It seems like they figured something out. Lamar Jackson's been throwing the ball better as well. I just don't think that the Titans are going to be able to stop the Ravens. And the Ravens are, at least I think, are going to have a better chance of slowing down the Titans' offense than the Titans will have of slowing down the Ravens. It's going to probably be the best game of the week, I think, of the weekend. But yeah, give me the Ravens minus 3.5.
Yeah.
So our next one, our biggest spread here, the Bears at the Saints. Bears are getting 10 points.
God, that's such a crazy amount of points. This was the hardest one for me to pick. I think Ravens Titans was difficult, but I think because it's a 10-point spread against the Saints, I'm so tempted to take the Bears. And then I remember that Mitch Trubisky is not good at playing quarterback, and the Saints defense is pretty good at playing defense. So I'm going to take the Saints minus 10 just because I'm not sure how the Bears score points.
Yep, I have the exact same. Literally, I have how are the Bears going to score enough points? I literally have that written down right here. I think it's going to be something like 30-10. Like, just going to be just a complete and utter blowout. Give me the Saints all the way.
Yeah. I think the Saints put those first round nightmares behind them from previous years.
And our last one. Browns at the Steelers. Browns are getting 6 points. I want to point out, whatever you think this is worth, Kevin Stefanski has tested positive for coronavirus and will not be on the sidelines coaching. Whatever that's worth, you think. Whatever you think that's worth.
I'm still taking the Browns. I'll take the Browns plus points. I think the Browns are going to win this outright. Wow, I actually had that written down first, and then I changed my mind. I'm going to stick with it. I'm taking the Steelers because the way I'm looking at it is the Browns couldn't cover that spread last week with Mason Rudolph at quarterback. So now with Big Ben at quarterback in a game that the Steelers have to win, they're going to cover. And then last week the Browns knew they had to win that game, and they won by 2 points. Yeah. So I give me the Steelers. Though I will say, I would be so thrilled if the Browns won this game. I would be so happy for them. Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I mean, the Browns. I think that they can win. But I definitely think that they're gonna, with 6 points, I think they're gonna cover. So definitely the Browns.
Okay.
So yeah, we have differences on a few of these, right?
Yeah, we have differences on. I've taken the Steelers. You've taken the Browns. I've taken the Ravens. You've taken the Titans, and I've taken the Bucks, and you've taken Washington football team.
Yeah. So I guess we'll just do an accumulation of the playoffs basically up until Super Bowl, obviously.
And let's hope that it's tied at the Super Bowl, so that way we can we can pick one way or the other. All right. I don't even have to hope that. I bet it will be.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. All right. So that's going to do it. You can follow us along again. Every show we've had. This is week 38 of the Benchwarmers podcast. We're moving right along. It's crazy that we finished an entire NFL season in this crazy COVID era. You can go back and listen to those early sportless shows on iHeartRadio podcasting or Amazon Podcasts or wherever else you get your podcasts. So for Jose Ortiz, I am Lou Ruggieri, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.